back into our meat of our conversation because I know a lot of people, a lot of emergency managers, especially, are focusing on domestic terrorism and the possibility for for um, a, maybe even a black swan. What I would
Sure.
call a black swan is, for example, if we're talking about the inauguration, if everybody's focusing on Washington, who's focusing on another part of the country?
Absolutely.
And I kind of want to ask you about that because there has been several events, and what I would call, not what I would call, there are several terrorist attacks that have impacted emergency management and response and how we do operate. So obviously, Oklahoma City bombing was a big one. 9/11, duh. But there's also the 7/7 attacks in UK. A lot of people in the US don't study that, but they really should. And then the Paris attacks a couple years ago, that coordinated attack, because it was a multi-location attack as well. And so and that's just terrorism, right? There's even the natural events, right? If everybody's focused on the earthquake on Cascadia, what happens when a hurricane pops up on the East Coast? So, from your perspective, a guy who's been to a lot of these events, who gets told, "Hey, you're deploying into a crime scene, or you're deploying into this mass casualty event," what have you done in the past to protect you and your team against cascading events?
Good question.
And yeah, and how do you make sure that other people still can focus on their jobs of that too?
Especially with social media as it is today. And FEMA now is the lead agency for consequence management. God forbid something does happen. And
Hmm.
you did bring up the Midwest, and in between the Midwest and the far West, we've got a lot of states out there that people consider rural, unimportant. And you know what? That's exactly what the domestic terrorists look for, is a target that's going to take a long time for resources to get out there. And in the meantime, the mayhem that's created by that. Um, and
Yeah.
so to keep people safe, the incident that happened in Waco woke some of us up in the
You're talking about
deployment,
the facility that blew up?
in the during the Davinian ATF explosion that
Uh,
happened, the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
1993. Um,
Uh-huh.
you were a young man back then. It was, but
I looked
that
better back
kind of,
then too. Yeah.
yes, that opened up a lot of eyes to response and deployment, because unintentionally, the ambulance strike team that was headed there, dispatched for those that would possibly be injured, not only the government workers, also the civilians that were in there. There were a lot of ambulances coming. As you know, AMR gets sent up and they'll send a strike team of, 25, 50 ambulances with no problem. On their way
Mhm.
there, they were needing to ask for directions. Remember, no GPS at this time. I mean, we were really in the early days of response. Saw a postal worker, a U.S. government dressed postal worker in a marked vehicle, and stopped to ask for directions to the compound. That person, being a member of that compound, saw the strike team and then alerted them to, not knowing what was going on, but somebody was asking for directions, and this is who they were. And so it alerted them. And so, i.e., us going to the Oklahoma City bombing, or going to any event, i.e., we've been doing RNCs and DNCs, Republican National Conventions, Democratic National Conventions, inaugurations. Anytime that there's a national security event, they'll activate and deploy several urban search and rescue teams for consequent management. We did it for the Atlanta Olympics, and we did it for the Salt Lake City Olympics as well. Um, and the last thing we need is for someone to get on the phone and say, "Hey, honey, this is where we're at tonight. We're staying at the Cobb County Fairground outside of Atlanta. And you know what? If something bad happens, we're going to fly in with Black Hawk helicopters because we won't be able to drive in." And so now I'm letting her know how we're doing things. And we've got the national pharmaceutical stockpile here. And what's that telling her?
Yeah.
Why are they there? And so why do we need to put this information out? And careful, because we want to involve our significant others, but at the same time, it's a security problem. And at the same time, are we imposing a psychological episode that they're not meant to handle? We are. We just don't
a
understand.
great call out.
We don't understand it. But hey, honey, I've come home with the boys' stuff and la la la, grow up, get thick skin. No, that's not the way that we're supposed to treat them and or our kids when they come down. Even my own kids, the pictures that you saw after ground zero of, people jumping out of buildings. Well, that's significant.
Right.
And so it
Well,
trickles down.
people who want to be in this field who think they can handle it, that doesn't always work out, but for the most part, people prepare for that. My wife is a phenomenal graphic designer. She has designed Academy Awards. She's done Ritz-Carlton rebranding. She's had some like really, really big products. She's even did the sign,
Best
disaster
podcast
test.
out there.
Yeah, right. So she's a really good graphic designer. She got into graphic design because she loves the way the world looks, and she wants to make the world look beautiful. I came home from my first active assailant event, and I was 3 months into a new job, and I told her about it. And that was like the biggest dumb idea I've ever done. One of my big dumb ideas. It really impacted her. She was worried about me. She was worried about like future. She did not sign up to be an emergency response. She wanted to. She would have done that. And she chose to focus on the beauty of the world, and I decided to focus on the destruction of the world. And I think it's okay. So after that event, I've never told her any other really intense event that I've been involved in. Yeah. But that doesn't mean I haven't talked to anybody. Like I still talk to like my buddies in the field and go through that. But you're right, it is a security issue, and now it's a security issue with social media. I'm sorry, there's stupid people out there. And when your buddy calls home to his spouse or his friend, and that friend's like, "Oh my gosh, man, my friend is so cool. Joe Hernandez is a hero. He's gonna have these Blackhawks, and he's at this location." And then like it spirals, or somebody else can hear it, right? Somebody else is in earshot, that maintenance worker, or even somebody else that's facilitating around that area, and they start realizing what's going on. They say it at a gas station. This is a really dumb one. A lot of people talk at gas stations when they're filling up their gas, back home. Yeah. So those are really good call outs to like to have situational awareness of the detail that you share and who you share to, not just for domestic terrorism or terrorism in general, but also for the health and safety of those in your life.